Well, the stream. Okay, and we are live. What's up, everyone? As we wait for people to start joining the live, I am here with my dear friend Hunter. Say hello, Hunter. Ask how everyone's doing.
Hello, everyone. Hope y'all doing well.
All right, so we've got some major Monday Night Football action today. Buccaneers at the Houston Texans and Chargers at Raiders. First up, we're going to be talking about Texans Bucs. To start, we'll look at some injuries. There's one significant one that I want to talk about, and that's Christian Kirk, who has dealt with several injuries throughout the past few years of his career. He signed with the Texans in the offseason after being with Jacksonville for a couple of years. Had a breakout season with the Jags, as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, but has yet to find his way into the Houston Texans like target share. So he's out for tonight. And so I'm specifically going to be looking at some rookies, Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, both from Iowa State, that are immediately making an impact with this Texans roster. But Hunter, what are your thoughts on the game overview for tonight? This is in a dome, so no weather questions. I'm going to let you have the floor.
For this game, my general feeling, I like this matchup. I'm very interested in the Texans. I think this is a pivotal game, not only for CJ Stroud, but also for D'Amico Ryans. And I'll be excited to see where that goes, along with the Emeka Egbuka storyline. I want to see if he can continue to do what he did in game one, or if they're going to try and get the ball to Mike Evans more. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's a great question because Emeka Egbuka became the Chris Godwin for this Buccaneers team last week on the road against the Falcons. They travel once again to Houston. I think he's due for another breakout session. I mean, all eyes are typically on Mike Evans when it comes to the Buccaneers offense, especially in the red zone. But we'll get into our anytime touchdown talk in just a little bit. First up, let's talk player props for this game. Hunter, I will go ahead and let you have the floor here. We're going to be using our Doink Sports tool, which is a great product, guys. Be sure to use code Plaisant when you visit at doinksports.com. Wonderful website. So, Hunter, go ahead and give me your player prop that you like for this game.
My first one is going to be Baker Mayfield over 35 and a half yards on the longest pass. I really feel like they got Derek Stingley at corner, so they're going to put him on either Mike Evans or Emeka Egbuka pretty much every play. But I think they're going to hit one deep ball when they're on the other side. That's what I think is going to happen. Could be Mike Evans, could be Emeka Egbuka. I didn't feel like taking the straight player and picking which one was going to do it, but I'm confident one of them is going to catch a deep ball today.
And you know what? Saying that exactly, I'm confident with you as well. If we look here using the Doink Sports platform, we can see, as we're scrolling down, let's get back up to the top. As we can see here, the Houston Texans defense in their last 9 out of 10 games have allowed a pass over 35 and a half yards 90% of the time. Now, Baker hasn't had that line hit quite often, but if you look at him on the road, those numbers, his passing attempts go up. And I do agree with you that Derek Stingley will be able to lock down basically whoever he's going to be guarding. But the rest of this Houston Texans secondary is not necessarily suspect, but they're not nearly as good as Stingley. This Buccaneers offense has been explosive over the past year and a half with Baker. Now, he took a step back this first game against the Falcons. I think they could be missing Liam Cohen a little bit, but I look for this Buccaneers offense to be more explosive. With that being said, they were still able to get the win versus Atlanta, but I do think that this Houston Texans defense, especially at home, is another animal, but the explosive plays are one that they let up nonetheless. So let me talk to you about a player prop that I really like, and that's CJ Stroud over his total yards, which if we go down here and use the Doink Sports tool here, we can shop this line at 230 and a half. I found it for 224 at minus 125. If you don't like that using Fanatics, I still am confident at 230 and a half. Either way, we'll go ahead and shop it at 110 because I think that's what the majority of people like. They want as little juice as possible. But CJ Stroud has been able to accomplish this in 6 of his last 10 games. If we want to filter it out even more and look at his home games, he performs really well at home, mainly because there's no weather factors here. So looking back at this line, I thoroughly enjoy it. The Buccaneers defense, if you look at them on the road in the last 10 games, they've allowed this on 8 of their last 10. CJ Stroud has taken a dip ever since his offensive coordinator and him have not been on the same page. The Texans have a new OC this year, and they did not get off to the best start. That offensive line looked chalked. So I'm sure that this upcoming game, they're going to get after it and make sure that Stroud has a clean or at least a cleaner pocket. So, Hunter, let me hear your thoughts about this game. What do you think is going to happen for this Texans offense, who only put up 9 points against the Rams in week 1?
Ooh, I was just thinking about that. Not only 9 points, especially after a suspect performance last year. I get the feeling that D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud's backs are against the wall a little bit. I think they're going to come out, they're going to make a statement. They're going to throw the ball to Nico a lot. That's what I think is going to happen in this game. Was not able to get going at all last week, and I think that's why they only scored 9
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into my next bet here with a Nico anytime touchdown.
Yeah. Let's
I
hop
feel
right
really
into that.
good. Yeah, I feel really good about that. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. They're going to get him involved because when your back's against the wall, you go to your best guys. They're going to go to Nico tonight.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're taking a look here, the Texans last week have 1 target total in the red zone passing the football. And it, of course, went to Nico Collins. If we go back and look at 2024, I mean, this is for everyone looking at these numbers, 31 to 32% is a staunch number for red zone targets. If we go and take a look at the Buccaneers last year, Mike Evans, who is like a touchdown machine, was only at 24% of the target share last year. So for Nico to be up here at 32%, obviously he's the go-to guy. And to still get him at plus 147 using underdog, and if we want to shop and find a sports book that everybody can take part in, like Caesars at plus 25, I think Nico Collins plus money for a touchdown at home is nuts. I mean, let's go take a look at Nico Collins last year. We by using the Doink Sports tool, we can look at this game log. We can see that reception touchdowns at home. Here's one. Let's see here. He got more target share here. At home here, he got 2 touchdowns. Moving down here again at home, Tennessee. That's a touchdown. At home versus Buffalo, a touchdown. At home versus Jacksonville, a touchdown. So at plus 147, Hunter, I think you found some great value there. So we're going to go ahead and chalk this up, and we're going to hit it for 1 unit. We're just going to say standard 10 is our unit play here. So we'll track that, keep an eye on it for next stream. We'll do a little report, see how that goes. I love that pick. That's probably my favorite pick of the night, quite frankly. So moving forward, did you have any other selections for this game?
I did. One last thought. I was looking over that game log he had put up, and the Texans seem to have a trend when it comes to games after losses, and that trend seems to go to Nico Collins. So I figure that
That is a good thought. Here, let me load this up real quick. Give me 1 second. Game logs. Let's see. After a loss. Oh yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Like the target share here is insane. The touchdowns, of course, coincide with that as well. Sharp eye there. I like that. So once again, Nico Collins, anytime touchdown, plus 147 was the line that we got here using underdog. But did you have any other selections for this game?
I did, and I'm rolling with Texans minus 2.5.
On the
I'm gonna roll
sides,
with them.
Texans minus 2.5. Okay.
I'm gonna take them. I think the pressure's on, and like I said earlier, they're gonna deliver. And yeah,
Well, here
that's
we
what's gonna
see
happen.
we can get minus 2.5 at I believe 103. Hold on, let me see here. 109 using Nexus, I believe. But if we want to again find a better sports book or a more usable sports book, Fanatics has got it minus 110. Let's see, FanDuel's got it at minus 105. ESPN Bet has got it at minus 105. You can see here that 2.5 is a pretty popular one right now. I think I'm rocking with the Texans as well. They perform pretty well at home, as we could see here in their last 10 games. They've covered that 2.5 spread 70% of the time. The Buccaneers on the road recently have done pretty well, but if we see when they play actual playoff teams, the Lions, the Chiefs, let's see who else is a playoff caliber team here. Really, nobody else. I mean, the Falcons, of course, on the road last week, but I would not qualify the Atlanta Falcons as the premier playoff team that the Houston Texans have been since CJ Stroud arrived. I mean, I can't think of another quarterback that's in year 2, year 3, or even year 4 with 2 playoff wins on his resume. CJ Stroud, I think, is the only quarterback with that. So, really like that line there. I have a couple more selections for this game. I'm going to go ahead and hop into them. Number one, anytime touchdown play here. I love the value that you're getting here with Cade Otton at plus. I have him at plus 450. Let's see if we can find that. DraftKings has actually knocked that down since I was able to look at it. But even at plus 400, I like that a lot. Let's go ahead and hop that in for 10, and then I'll explain some of my reasoning behind it. So looking back at this Buccaneers offense last year versus the Falcons in game 1, Emeka Egbuka had 2 touchdowns receiving, but they were on explosive plays, not in the red zone. That's great for the Buccaneers, but I would not call that a sustainable form of offense. Looking into what they were able to do last year, Cade Otton had the second most target shares by a pretty wide margin in the red zone. And then we see who's third on that list. It's Rachaad White. He has become a afterthought in this offense over the last 5 or 6 games for the Bucs. So I think Otton's role increases with that 13% loss from Rachaad White. And once again, at plus 449, you could get it down at plus 400 at DraftKings. We look at Mike Evans, who's at plus 160. He has just a slighter advantage in the target share margin, yet like touchdown wise, I think Cade Otton provides that value at a third of a touchdown per game. I believe he missed some games due to injury. So any thoughts on that? Do you think Baker Mayfield is a tight end fiend when it comes to the red zone?
I think Baker has shown that he likes his tight ends in the red zone. I think they're bigger targets. He's not that big of a guy, so when he gets those opportunities in short yardage, he likes his tight ends.
Yeah, I very much agree. I mean, we look at some of these other anytime touchdown plays. I mean, Baker Mayfield running one in at plus 850. I mean, are we actually going to see Baker Mayfield take it in? Maybe, I guess, but I highly doubt it. I mean, not to mention the Texans defense only allowed 0.1 touchdowns from QBs per game last year, which is the 11th best in the league. It's pretty doubtful we're going to see Baker Mayfield turn into, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen out there. So with that being said, I got one more player prop. So we're pretty much on the same train here, Hunter, that the Texans are looking to make a statement here, and CJ Stroud is the guy to make that statement, right?
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So with that being said, similarly to Mike Evans, Nico Collins is going to get his touches or at least his targets, right? But looking at the rest of this Houston Texans offense, there's nobody else that really strikes me in the receiving game outside of rookie wide receiver Jaden Higgins. And so, it's a little bit harder to look at some of these lines when you don't have the game log to follow. But what we do have is the game log with the Tampa Bay defense. And with the line at 25.5 using Fanatics at minus 110, I think there is a tremendous amount of value at over 25.5 yards for Jaden Higgins as wide receiver 2. The rest of this Texans offense did not really get the target share that you were expecting. Of course, here, Jaden Higgins only receiving 11%. Oh, I actually accidentally went back to touchdowns here. Let's scroll back down as I'll continue. Jaden Higgins, I think, will be wide receiver 2 for the Texans in this game. The Buccaneers have not done well with that. Let's go back and take a look at some of these matchups here versus wide receiver 2s. Deebo Samuel, Wan'Dale Robinson, Xavier Legette, Trey Tucker, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Tolbert. I mean, so basically what we're looking at is the receivers that are in the red on this side are Jalen Tolbert, Kevin Austin, and Trey Tucker. In my opinion, I think Jaden Higgins is a far more talented receiver than that. And not to mention, the Texans will be without Christian Kirk for this game. There's got to be somebody to pick up the slack, and I think it's Higgins. Is there anybody else in this offense, Hunter, who you think will end up picking up some of that slack?
No, to be honest with you, and I totally agree. I like the train of thought you're on here, especially with rookies. As time goes on into the season, they're going to get more used to playing, going to get more touches, going to be more competent. So
Yeah,
I like what you got going here.
I agree. And I think, harping back on that CJ Stroud thought, the Texans are going to look to sling the rock. And the Buccaneers' pass defense has not been the greatest in the league over the last few years. I mean, they've got some older guys on that defense like Levante David. So, especially on the road here, I don't necessarily think that this Buccaneers defense is going to be able to perform at peak level. And the Texans have had an extra day-ish to continue to game plan on how to cut up this Todd Bowles defense. So love that Higgins play. There's a ton of value at over 25.5. Of course, you get that here minus 110 with Fanatics. We'll track that as well. And we'll actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's go back and track some of these other lines. So you liked Baker Mayfield over on his longest pass, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. Okay, so let's track that as well. Here we go. Baker and longest pass over 35.5. Let's see. So this is another tool that you can use with doinksports.com. Quick plug. Use code Plaisant for 25% off any package. You can see all of these lines and more when you use this website and buy one of the products here. So we can actually shop this line just a little bit. We see it's minus 112 at over 35.5 with FanDuel. That's a major sports book. I try whenever I try to do these streams, Hunter, by the way, I try to stay away from the sharp books. So like Bet ParkX, Hard Rock is a limited sports book. Even Fliff, Bali, ProfitX, some of these that, the typical viewer here, by the way, if you're viewing us, welcome in. Thank you for watching. No one that I know at least has got a Sport Trade betting account. And if they do, maybe we need to call the hotline. So with FanDuel here at 112, we'll track that and we will call it, let's see, 11:20. I'm actually doing unit plays, in my opinion, are the odds. So taking odds at 112, to me, that's an $11.20 wager. We'll go back and edit some of our other bets. So your 3 picks in this game were Baker over, Nico Collins anytime touchdown, and the Texans minus 2.5, correct?
That's right.
Okay, harp one more time for anybody that got that missed the early part of this. Tell everybody once again what you think about the Texans and why you think they're favored to win this game by 2.5.
I think the Texans, especially D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, are feeling the pressure a little bit. Their backs are against the wall, especially after last season. They had a rough season offensively. The first game did not give anybody confidence in that offense. But I think reality's starting to set in on them. And like you mentioned just a little bit ago, Jaden Higgins, hopefully he emerges early into this game because they need a second option.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I'm kind of worried about where the Texans go if they can't win this game. It kind of seems like, sure, game number 1 versus the Rams and game number 2 versus the Bucs, they're at a conference matchup, so they don't mean as much in the playoffs. But when you start 0-2, man, it is so hard to dig yourself out of that hole. We saw the Cincinnati Bengals last year try to do that the entire season, and they just couldn't. The defense was not up to par, and Joe Burrow, put up, I think, 32 points per game, but they just could never win 2 or 3 in a row. And that's kind of the issue that I see happening here for the Texans if they can't get it going in this game. It kind of seems like a desperation game early on in the season, which is crazy. So let me track this pick real quick. CJ Stroud over 232.5 at 111. And we will continue on. Let's go ahead and talk about Chargers versus Raiders in this
Let's do it.
game. Give me a little bit of your insight and what you think is going to happen in this game. First, talk about the stellar performances, of course, versus the
Right.
Chiefs and the Patriots last week for both of these teams.
Right. I was very impressed with the Chargers, specifically in Justin Herbert's performance. I wouldn't say I was surprised that they ran him a little bit and that he took off. I would say more than he looks like he could, or more than he usually does. But I liked the way he looked when he ran the ball, and I know Jim Harbaugh. He's going to run the ball, and if Amarian Hampton isn't ready to take that leap yet, then they're going to run it with Justin Herbert. I think they're going to run the ball, and if he looks anywhere close to what he did last week, then I like the Chargers' chances in this game. Now with the Raiders, I think their defense looks good because we saw just the other day Drake May and those Patriots tore up. We did play the Dolphins. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They scored, I think, 32 points against the Dolphins. So I think it's a much improved Patriots offense, but they looked pretty pedestrian against the Raiders last week, like you were saying.
They do. They did. I mean, but let's see. Be at Pete Carroll up there. Defense looks pretty good. They have a pretty good defensive line, so it'll be an interesting game. What
Yeah,
about you?
I am very excited for this game. A divisional matchup, a rivalry nonetheless. Chargers on the road versus the Raiders. They're coming off of that overseas game as well. That's an important note. They played in what is it, Sao Paulo in Brazil last week,
Mhm.
right? Against the Chiefs on a Friday. So they of course get the extra, I think 3 days really, the extra Friday and Sunday from last week and then Sunday from this past week. But having to recover, moving your entire team from Brazil back to Los Angeles and then travel to Las Vegas. I'm actually not certain off the top of my head. They might have just traveled straight to Vegas. I wouldn't have blamed them because putting your team on the plane twice in about a week's time is a tough thing to do. But the Chargers offense looked, in my opinion, amazing. Now, that Chiefs defense last week and including this past week really looked soft against the run. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, I think did a good job of exposing that with the Eagles. But Justin Herbert, let's take a look at that. Let's go ahead and start talking about some player props here. Against the Chiefs, 7 carries, 32 yards. And quite a few of those weren't even scrambles. They were specific Jim Harbaugh designed runs. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to with this new look Chargers offense. What are you expecting to see in terms of Justin Herbert's involvement in the run game?
I expect to see good things again. I'm going to actually go with my first 2 bets because they do correlate. Um, they both involve Herbert running the ball, and I got him going over 4.5 rush attempts and over 17.5 rushing yards. I think he looked very athletic running the ball. think he's a great athlete. Everyone knows he can throw the ball. He's got a cannon. He looks pretty when he throws it, but he's got some wheels on him. He's got some wheels on him. He impressed me in game one, and I expect him to build on that heading into the season.
I agree as well. And, to kind of favor your point, Max Crosby, especially when we're talking about some more pedestrian athletic quarterbacks like Mac Jones, Spencer Rattler, Kirk Cousins from last year, Max Crosby gets after quarterbacks. But when you have a dynamic quarterback that can run with his legs like Herbert can, you see those rush attempts start to increase. As a matter of fact, here we are, Chargers Raiders, in January of this past season in 2025, 4 attempts, 42 yards. So at that 17.5 and the 4.5, I think both of those have a ton of value. Jim Harbaugh in the offseason talked about using Herbert as more of a running quarterback. I think that's the plan for the Chargers. We see here with 7 attempts in week 1. Herbert has been able to do it plenty of times. And here's another correlation. When he goes over that 4.5 rushing attempt, we see easily he carries that 17.5 rushing yards. So as a matter of fact, we can use our Doink Sports tool here and we can filter rush attempts and we can say more than 4 rushing attempts for Herbert. And as we can see here, in 80% of the games, when Herbert runs over 4.5 times, he easily clears this 17.5 line. Let's actually take a look at that and see what kind of value we can get. Let's check out the competing lines for 17.5. We've got underdog here at minus 118. Bet 365, as a matter of fact, is probably the best line you can get. That's a pretty major sports book, in my opinion. So that's what we'll track it with. So let's go ahead and track this up. And we'll take a look at Bet 365. And we'll do that for 11. Track it up. And then let's take a look at the 4.5. So Novig's offering this at plus 130. If you have a Novig account, congratulations. You get to win the extra juice that they have here. But we're going to track that at, let's see. Oh, well, here we go. Bet 365 has got it at plus 130. Great. So we'll track that there. So in my opinion, Hunter, very sharp picks. You're sounding like a bit of a professional right now, and I'm very much enjoying that.
Hey, I'm glad I could pretend to be a professional for a night.
That's what I like to hear. So let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of my props that I like. I love Herbert over 2 touchdowns here. This Raiders defense has been pretty bad against the pass over the last season, really season and a half. They went through the coaching turmoil last year of firing Pierce, the head coach. They hire Pete Carroll. They were able to put the clamps on Drake May. But as we kind of talked about, Amarion Hampton, running back for the Chargers, was able to put the ball on the ground, 15 attempts, but really did not succeed when it comes to running the football. And my question is this Chargers team physical enough to give him the ball repeatedly and have him succeed, especially in the red zone when we know teams start to stack the box? Now, these touchdowns from Herbert last week were extremely explosive ones. I remember the couple to Quentin Johnston. Man, everybody has been hating on Quentin Johnston for quite some time, but did he not have a breakout game for the Chargers last week? Let's go take a look at some of those stats real quick. Last week, 5 catches, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very impressive game. Usually when we're talking about a quarterback throwing for more than 1 touchdown, we don't see the odds this nice, in my opinion, at minus 115. Herbert has struggled to do it in a couple of these games, but if we're looking at his stats on the road, his pass attempts go down a little bit. I think knowing this Chargers offense, I think we see them pretty much on the line here of 34-25. So I like this line at over 1.5 touchdowns minus 115. Let's track that up. That's what I'll be tracking in terms of player props. Let's see here. 115, track it. So once again, everyone, you can use the Doink Sports tools here to compare some of these games where the teams are pretty evenly matched in terms of divisional prowess, right? We've got 2 1-0 teams. We can filter out looking at the Chargers on the road, the Raiders at home, both of these teams in prime time over the last 10. You can filter out to 5, 15, 30 games. You can filter out pass attempts. This is just a great tool to find the best leverage. Educate yourself before you hop in and just start throwing wagers around, in my opinion. Use doinksports.com. You can use code PLIZONT, that's PLIZONT, to get 25% off of any product of your choosing. Hunter, go ahead and tell the people about your third pick for this game.
Pleasant. I'm buying in. It's Jim Harbaugh on the road. I cannot see how Amari Hampton's carries go down from last week. I got him going over 14.5 carries again.
Okay. That's an interesting line there. And I wholeheartedly agree, as a matter of fact, basically because Najee Harris has one eye pretty much, right?
Yep.
The story on him, he had, I believe, a firework accident over the offseason. I'm not quite sure the status of his eye. All I do know is he got 1 carry in game number 1. Will we see that increase? I kind of doubt it, and it sounds like you do as well.
Yeah, he must have been hanging out with JPP. I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, Mr. Three Fingers himself. I think that we will see Amari Hampton continue to grow in this offense. Maybe not in the red zone, but definitely establishing the run. Jim Harbaugh is a pound the rock guy. We saw it with him at Stanford, in San Francisco 15 years ago. We saw it at Michigan. And now, of course, last year and this year, we are seeing it again with the Los Angeles Chargers. So over 14.5 rush attempts for Amari Hampton. Let's take a look and see if we can find some other value. It looks like 14.5 is going to be our best at plus 105 at Underdog. Well, let's see if we can see here some other lines. Bet365's got it at 105. DraftKings got it at 104. I like that a good bit. I think Hampton is going to be somebody that tries to establish the Chargers' presence early. So let's track this up just with 10, and we shall move on. The last thing that I want to talk about before moving in, actually, we'll go ahead and move in to the anytime touchdowns here. Now, I know based off of what you told me before this stream began that you didn't have any anytime touchdown picks, but if there was anything that you had to choose here off the cuff, what do you like? Not necessarily an official pick, just something to recommend to the people.
You know, I got a feeling about Keenan Allen. I got a feeling about Keenan Allen. He likes him in the red zone. He trusts him from years in the past, and he just seems to score. I don't know. He's like the silent killer. You never think about Keenan Allen, but he's always catching touchdowns.
Yeah, I actually wholeheartedly agree. So the reason I actually teed you up for this was because I was going to go with the Keenan Allen anytime touchdown.
No way.
Yeah. So what a snipe there. Great play from the back. Plus 254 at a major sports book. You can get it at FanDuel for plus 250. I love this play. Keenan Allen has been a staple for this Chargers team for a literal decade. He goes to Chicago, tries to test out his luck as he winds down his career. It did not work. But last week, Allen caught a touchdown. got a target in the red zone, caught it, scored his touchdown. Looking at the player props from last week, we can look at, well, actually, I will show you guys how to properly use the Doink Sports tool. If you want to look at Keenan Allen and his workload last week, we can just click him right there, and we can see last week 10 targets, 7 catches, 68 yards. He might be an old man, but this man is not washed yet. He is still out here putting up performance after performance. And one thing that I would like to say is that this game from Quentin Johnston, ladies and gentlemen, might be an outlier. 5 catches, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't, if you want to filter out his last 30 games, I don't think he's ever had quite that good of a performance. As a matter of fact, we can see here using the Doink Sports filter here, he has not had a 2 touchdown, 70 plus yard, 5 catch performance. We saw him last year, 13 catches, 186 yards, no touchdowns. We can see he's averaging 30% of his games scoring a touchdown. And if we go back and take a look at Allen, let's go ahead and go back to that Chiefs-Chargers game, Chargers-Raiders game. Go to
Hey,
player
before you
props.
do, can you
Yeah.
look at can you pull up Lad McConkey's real quick?
Yeah, I sure can, as a matter of fact. Let's go take a look at Lad, and we'll go to his last 30 games. We'll start down here at the bottom. Of course, Lad, a rookie last year. We're not going to see, quite the game log status, but once again, he is about a third of a touchdown per game, 5 catches per game in his career, about 80 yards. So, I mean, to me, I looked at this game beforehand, and these lines looked pretty sharp. So, we see some of these games where he said, we want to filter out his last 10 games and talk about that. He's hit that over 5.5 catches 70% of the time. And you could see his target share is around 30%, that's pretty high. Even for a wide receiver one, 30% is a lot of catches. But one thing that I want to contrast with is, surprisingly enough, this Raiders defense is pretty good at stopping wide receiver ones. Now, with Ladd last year, they were able to limit his targets, not his yards. Matter of fact, we can just take a look at Ladd McConkey. Here are his 2 games versus the Raiders. Both 5 catches, 1 under, 1 over. His longest reception split those as well. And with the Raiders at home, we get another kind of mixed bag, right? That was my personal reasoning behind staying away from some of these games. But is there anything that you like here? You see any value here with Ladd?
Well, Pleasant, the reason I asked you to bring this up, I wanted to see his numbers because I was particularly looking at the targets that the receivers in this offense were getting, and Keenan Allen getting 10 targets in week 1. That was the most on the team, I believe.
That's correct. That is right. Yeah, Keenan was 1, Ladd 2, and then Quentin Johnston 3rd with 7 targets.
I don't know, I find that interesting. When it comes to target share, I love that if he continues to be the most targeted receiver in this offense, I mean, I don't see how he can't be a top performing wide receiver in the league.
I completely agree. And you know what? We're going back to this anytime touchdown status. If we look here at 2025, Keenan Allen at plus 254. As a matter of fact, we'll just go straight to the anytime touchdown status here. Keenan Allen at plus 254, a known scoring commodity in the league, unlike Quentin Johnston. At plus 254 is great value, where you see Ladd McConkey, who's going to get a lot of attention with this Chargers offense, is at plus 165. So you get about 100 points in value. I like that a lot. If we want to take a look at this Raiders defense from 2024, wide receiver wise, they were pretty decent against the pass, but I'd like to be able to see some more in-depth stats about wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. As a matter of fact, we can do that. Let's take a look at the player prop status. We'll scroll down to wide receiver. We'll call Keenan Allen wide receiver 3. Well, we'll call him wide receiver
I would
2.
say so.
I I would call him wide receiver 2 in this offense just because he got a higher target share than Quentin Johnston. So looking at some of these receptions and whatnot from the Raiders, we see when you have prominent guys, here's Quentin Johnston last year, who absolutely feasted on the Raiders last year. Keyshawn Butte, who LSU alum, of course, was able to tear him up as well. When you have prominent wide receiver 2s that go up against this Raiders defense, they perform pretty well. And they've made some additions on the back end. So trying to use some of these games from last year as evidence is a little murky, I would say. But overall, Keenan Allen in game 1 getting 10 targets. I think that says a lot about where the Chargers are planning on going as far as spreading out the pass game. So moving back to this Keenan Allen anytime touchdown at plus 254. Let's hop into it. Let's slam that and we'll move on. Do you like any of the sides here? Are you leaned earlier? You said you like Jim Harbaugh and this Chargers team. Are you willing to make an official pick on that?
Oh, you're talking about tonight's game, yeah?
Yes, indeed. Line is currently Chargers minus 3.5.
The Raiders, they have a dome now, don't they?
Indeed. Yeah. Allegiant Stadium.
Oof. You
Actually,
know,
the Death Star is a sick stadium.
and then it's a great name too.
Yeah.
Have you seen the stat about Geno playing inside domes, his stats?
I have not. I'm not. Let's hear it.
Well, if you've looked into it, he plays apparently he plays amazing inside domes.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
apparently he averages I can't remember the exact number, but I know it was north of 350. So,
Well, you know what? I can tell you what, we can confirm that using the Doink Sports tool. Now, I can't uh like filter the word dome,
right.
unfortunately, but we can just go take a look at Geno's game log. Let's take a look at his last 15 and let's look at some games that were inside a dome. So he was with the Seahawks last year. So home games, not in a dome. So road games at Detroit, that's a dome. 395. What a performance. Let's see here. Some more dome games. Here, let's look from the bottom up. Let's see here. Arizona, 233, 24 completions on 30 pass attempts. Arizona again, 254. Let's see some more interesting games. So let's go 30.
Now tell me, how is Carroll's offense? What kind of offense does he run?
So he runs a pretty run-centric offense. As a matter of fact, we can take a look here. Ashton Genty, I mean, they practically ran him into a brick wall versus New England in week 1. 19 attempts, 38 yards, just getting stuffed, unbelievably stuffed there in week 1. Will he have a better game? There's no way it gets worse than averaging 2 yards a carry, right?
Looks like they're gonna need Dome Geno tonight. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
So, in my opinion, Pete Carroll, going back to his Seattle Seahawks days, the early days of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet splitting the backfield, Marshawn Lynch being the bell cow for that Seahawks team for forever, basically. And then even him at USC, Reggie Bush, Thunder and Lightning there. They, of course, have had some great quarterbacks under Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart at USC, Russell Wilson with Seattle, even Geno before Pete Carroll was, I think, fired. Maybe he stepped down, but we all know, he was pushed out of that building. Anyways, Carroll, to me, is pretty similar to Jim Harbaugh in terms of scheme offensively, physical offenses that like to establish physicality and running the ball, winning the game at the line of scrimmage. These props, though, for Genty, to me, it says that Vegas has a lot of faith that he's going to be much better at home than versus the Patriots with a line like 67 and a half rushing yards. So what do you think about that? Do you think Genty's going to have a not even a better game? Because I think 95% of our audience here can agree he's gonna have a better game than 2 yards per carry. But let me know what you think.
Well, my first question is, do you think Vegas also suffers from hometown hopefuls?
That's a really good question. I am sure that the sports
Yeah.
books are a little tilted in the Las Vegas Raiders' favor. That's a
I'm
great
not too
question.
sure. I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't think the Patriots have an elite defense right now and only 38 yards on 19 attempts. That is concerning. And this may just be me. And I'm not saying Ashton Genty, I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a very good player. When I watch him run, I just don't see the special yet. And maybe I will, but I
Yeah, you
haven't
you don't
yet
see
and
the
I want to see it.
generational that a lot of people kind of chalked him up to be in the draft, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and you know what? He did not show any of that generational talent against the Patriots. I mean, running it 19 times and your longest run is 9 yards. I'm going to show you a quick cool tool here. We can filter out rush attempts. We'll say more than 15 from a player on the against the Los Angeles Chargers defense, and we'll filter that out to the last 30 games. There is not a single game on here actually, there's one, and we'll keep scrolling. Yeah, one out of the last 30 games did the Chargers allow a longest rush of less than 9 yards. So it's gonna be tough sledding for Genty to get worse than he was versus the Patriots, but we're talking about here damn near doubling his rush yards from week 1 to week 2. And that's not something that I really like that much. I thought the Chargers defense here, we'll filter it back out to the last 10 games here. I thought the Chargers defense did a great job establishing physicality at the line of scrimmage. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco only ran for 16 yards. If we look at Kareem Hunt last week, he only ran for 25 yards on 5 attempts. Actually, this is again Pacheco, but I don't think Kareem Hunt, if I can think off the top of my head, I don't think he had a astronomically great game versus the Chargers. We saw
No.
did you watch Friday Night Football, Chiefs Chargers from week 1?
Yes, I did. I called parts of that game, and I just remember seeing the Chiefs just stop trying to run the ball. They ran the
Yeah.
ball like 12 times. I think each running back got 6 carries each, but I think maybe 40, 50 yards rushing. It was not a lot.
Yeah, I definitely think this Chargers defensive line, even with the loss of Joey Bosa, who is, not necessarily known as a run stopper, but I think they have great physicality. We saw probably the MVP of that Chargers game was I cannot remember his first name, but Tart, number 90, that defensive tackle for the Chargers that batted those 3 balls from Mahomes. That guy might be an all-pro player if he continues at that pace. So we don't see defensive tackles get that many bats. So I'm really curious to see the matchup here between Genty and this Chargers defensive front. Jim Harbaugh has been known once again to try to be as physical as possible. They did that versus the Chiefs. I think they can do that again versus the Raiders. So, but before we get in here to a recap, I want to go here on the sides and I want to talk about specifically this Chargers team. There's a lot of people that are high up on the Chargers. Under Harbaugh on the road, in their last 10 games, have covered a 3.5 point spread 60% of the time. The Raiders at home have only covered a 3.5 point underdog spread 40% of the time. I think there's a little bit of juice here. My official pick is I'm rocking with the Chargers minus 3.5. Do you possibly, Hunter, have a rebuttal or maybe a statement of support for this pick?
I have a statement of support. I like it. To be honest with you, I want to give the Chargers credit for last week. Being able to travel that far and to perform that well, that's very impressive. You obviously saw the Chiefs I wouldn't say they performed poorly, but they were not on their A game. But the Chargers looked like they were on their A game, so I want to give them credit for that. And I don't see any reason why they can't travel back and do the same thing. So I don't think that'll be too much of a factor. And I think the Chargers look good. I think they're going to roll. I think when you have two coaches with a similar style, I like the Chargers' talent over the Raiders' talent.
I wholeheartedly agree. A lot of people were hyped up about this Raiders team, and they kind of proved me wrong in week 1. I did not expect the performance that we got from them against the Patriots on the road. Pretty impressed with that. But what I am indeed, like you said, more impressed with is the Chargers going to Brazil to not only beat, but in my opinion, thoroughly beat the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs were without Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. He got hurt early on in that game. But I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, man. And Justin Herbert was able to hand the Chiefs defense their lunch money. I would put the Chargers defense pretty much on par. And I don't know if I can trust the Raiders in this spot right now. Monday Night Football, national television, primetime games.
They ain't
They've
ready for
done,
prime time.
yeah, primetime, they've done pretty well. But as we can see here, the Raiders played one primetime game last year, and that was it. The rest of these are from 2023 and before. So the one time that they did, it was a snooze fest versus the Falcons. They lost that game. The Chargers have had a few primetime games in the last year or so. They have performed pretty well. The teams that they lost to, Kansas City, Baltimore, AFC playoff, AFC championship contending teams, whereas they actually beat the Chiefs, of course, Friday, the Broncos last year, and the Cincinnati Bengals when they were rolling with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. So this is an official pick here. One thing of note on the sides part of Doink Sports, it is coming where you can track your sides. You are now able to compare the spread against other sports books. We could see Chargers -5 is plus 120 using Hard Rock Sportsbook. We could see -1.5. You can get that -156 at Novig. I think looking at this, I like -3.5 plus 110. That's the best that we can see right here. But if we press our tracker here, we can see that major sportsbook wise, you can get this at Caesars, DraftKings, BetMGM, Bet365, Fanatics, all at -105. And that's an official pick that we'll be making here tonight. So to wrap this up, before I ask you a surprise question about game number 1, and then maybe we'll get back to game number 2, is let's recap first. So to start,
all right,
we've got Keenan Allen, anytime touchdown, 10 targets last week. We really like that value there. Matter of fact, I double tracked it. So let's untrack one of those. There we go.
double down.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't tell the audience to double down, but these are the picks that we really like here. Amarian Hampton over 14.5. Hunter, your logic there was you think he's going to get more of the workload, and Jim Harbaugh is a run first type coach. Is that kind of the storyline here for you?
Yeah, that's right. And on top of that, you had recapped at one point how on the road they seem to run the ball more. I think that's
Yes.
going to track this game alongside
Yeah.
what you said.
Much agreed. And then looking here, Justin Herbert, this is a personal pick from me. He had 3 passing touchdowns last week. I don't know how well the Chargers can run the football in the trenches in the red zone. I think they'll try, but I think when it comes to third down, Herbert is going to be able to cut up this Raiders defense and throw a couple of passing touchdowns here. It's in a dome, so we don't have to worry about any inclement weather or anything like that. Now, I'm going to let you take the floor here, Hunter, and you have Justin Herbert over 4.5 rushing attempts and correlating with that over 17.5 rushing yards. I'll let you have the floor here.
Yeah, these are my 2 favorite picks. really, I think if he gets over 4.5 rushing attempts, he's gonna have more than 17 rushing yards. That's just how I just believe that. And then I really think what's going to help this game is him not being afraid to maybe make 1 or 2 reads and then take off. The Raiders have some pass rushers, they have Max Crosby. They're gonna try and get after him, and if he can step up in the pocket and escape, he could rip off 10, 15 yards. He could rip off some scrambles that he won't have to have so many, QB runs called for him. He may have 1 or 2, but, he may be able to rip off a few scrambles this game based on how many times the Raiders wanna blitz him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think the Raiders defense is one that has a front level pass rush, but that second unit there with the linebacking core is not one that strikes me as great at QB contain or QB spy. We saw the Chiefs really struggle with that last week. Herbert sealed the game, as a matter of fact, on that third down scramble to the right where he picks up, I think, damn near close to 17 or 18 yards on that play, slides down, game over. So I love this. I think Harbaugh, when Herbert was healthy last year, was able to trust him in the run game. He averaged, I think, around 7 rush attempts last season when he was healthy. So over 4.5 to me is great value, plus 130 there. Moving on, let's hop back into that Texans Bucs game. We've got CJ Stroud over 232.5. We both agree that the Texans are in kind of a make or break situation in regards to the season. The offense has struggled tremendously over the last, I don't know, 7, maybe 8 games, maybe about 6, 7 games. Uh, anyways, I think Stroud is going to come out and try to perform at peak level in the dome at home for Houston. And we're correlating that with a Nico Collins anytime touchdown. Hunter, talk about that because there's tons of statistics to back this up.
I totally agree with, your analysis. I think CJ Stroud, in order to do what he needs to do or what he wants to do, which is make a statement about his ability to be a starter in this league and maybe even, one of the best quarterbacks in this league, we saw flashes of that his rookie season. And there's a lot of quarterbacks who have sophomore slumps. So last year, I wouldn't put too much weight on that. But game one this year did not give me any confidence in their ability to get it turned around. But I'm not willing to judge them on that yet. And in order to do what he wants to do, he got to use his best weapons, and that's Nico Collins. So I have full faith that he's going to be a huge target, not only in the red zone, but early and often.
Yes. I thoroughly agree with that logic as well. Moving into the Buccaneers side of things, you've got Baker Mayfield over 35.5. Now, his game log doesn't necessarily track with the over 35.5, but what did was the Texans defense in their last 10 matchups have given up a pass of 35.5 yards or longer 90% of the time. So we are seeing a line at minus 112 for a prop that is potentially hitting at, 80, 90% of the time. I think that is a great facet for somebody that is looking for value. This one is a very sharp pick from Hunter, in my opinion, in this situation here. Not to mention, you're kind of a Baker Mayfield fan, huh?
Yeah, I mean, earlier when you mentioned run like Lamar Jackson, he would have to take a step down in order to do that. So
Is that right? Yeah. We got Baker over Lamar here. Okay.
I'm
So
just kidding.
moving into the last couple of picks before we talk about our last part of this. This is going to get a little exciting, a little crazy. I've got Cade Otton anytime touchdown for this Buccaneers team. Looking at last year's statistics using the Doink Sports tool. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys real quick. Going over to this, please be sure to check out doinksports.com. In my opinion, it is a great tool. You can see here at the bottom, educate yourself, leverage your bets. The sports books have become too rich. It's time to take them down. And the best way to do that is by using this platform to find the best value across everything. So check it out. You can find both of these games, I believe, of your choosing for free to look at tonight. then if you really like the product, consider a purchase and use code PLIZONT, PLIZONT, for 25% off of any package using Doink Sports. Let's continue, though. So I've got Cade Otton, anytime touchdown, at plus 400. Now, you can get this at 449 using Novig, but DraftKings, a major sports book, has got it at 400. That's what I like. Let's go ahead and talk about this, though. If we go back here and we talk about Houston Texans against, they were one of the worst defenses in allowing touchdowns to tight ends, right? They were 28th in the league in allowing touchdowns to tight ends. Not great at all. Although this Texans defense is great, their linebacking core is known for their pass rushers. We're talking about Danielle Hunter, who's kind of a defensive end, but Will Anderson, a linebacker for the majority of his career, is a pass rusher. This Texans defense in the middle is a little soft. Cade Otton exploits that. Speaking of Otton, looking at his target share in the red zone from last year, it was the second highest. And we see Mike Evans, who's kind of coming down in the last couple of years of his career. I think that target share might fall just a little bit. Rachaad White is no longer really a part of the Buccaneers offense. And we don't really see anybody stepping up other than Emeka Egbuka, who I think will kind of take some of that load from Sterling Shepard and Rachaad White. So Cade Otton gets about a third, or maybe even a fourth of the red zone target share. If that continues at plus 400, it lines up perfectly. So if he scores a touchdown, which the Texans give up quite often to tight ends, plus 400 is great value. So that's the recap. Hunter, the last thing I'm going to talk about when discussing this game, are there any long shots, specifically talking about any player? Do you think a player on either of these teams, Buccaneers and Texans, is going to have some kind of breakout game, the likes of which most people have not expected to see?
Well, let's think about this here. I know we both earlier we both agreed Jaden Higgins was probably the best, or let's say most likely player to maybe have a great game, considering they're trying to make him the second option. He's a rookie, so he's going to get more run out there, going to get more snaps. And but I don't want to go that because I think that may be honestly one of the top picks in that category.
I agree.
So let me see these both of these rosters real quick.
Okay, so let's take a look here at Nico Collins. You know, his line here is set at 5.5 catches, 74.5 yards. Looking at some of these long shot plays, we go over here. 10 catches for Nico Collins is at plus 700. To over 10.5, you get it at plus 1630. But we've actually seen Nico do this in his last 10 or so games. Matter of fact, early on in the season last year, he was able to do this once in his last 15. Yeah.
Hey, look after the losses.
Yeah. So we see here
11.
Yeah, we see it after losses. They really heavily focus on Nico Collins, and he only got 5 targets in that game versus Los Angeles. That's definitely a point of value there. So let's look at some of these other ones. Over 8.5 catches at plus 491 using underdog. What do you think about that? As not an official play, but just more of a long shot. I think there's some value there.
Yeah, I agree. It's been 9 months since that last happened, but I do think he has the potential to get so many targets. Because we said earlier, they really don't have a certified number 2 yet.
Right.
We saw their offense with only 5 targets last week. But I don't see any way they can't at least give CJ Stroud a couple of seconds to throw the ball in his general direction. With his catch radius, he'll be able to catch a lot of balls.
Yeah, I think even, throwing up a prayer for Nico Collins is not a bad idea because, I mean, this guy is 6'3", 210 pounds. He's got the wingspan of like a 6'8" guy. It's unbelievable. And guess what? Me and Hunter here have both seen this guy up close and personal in high school football. This guy turned one of our high school classmates into basically someone that's non-existent. I think in a game in high school football, this guy had like 7 catches for 230 yards and 4 touchdowns. So
It was
Nick,
unfair.
we've been knowing that Nico Collins is the truth. This is a guy that's not to be doubted here.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. You're right. We saw that. I mean, you just knew. You could.
yeah,
It's just a vibe.
yeah. You knew that this guy was going to be something special, even if he was going up against a guy who was 5'8" and a buck 30 when soaking wet. So, with that being said, I think that plus or over 8.5 as kind of a long shot play, plus 491 is something of value. I'll go ahead and extend this to touchdowns, anytime touchdowns here. Looking at the Texans, you said you liked Nico Collins. I'm not a fan of. I think Nick Chubb getting 2 touchdowns here at plus 800 solely because he's the only running back, in my opinion, that's going to get the amount of carries in this game. Rachaad White, not really a big part of this offense. If we go take a look at Bucky Irving, as a matter of fact, you know what? I swap my pick. Long shot play. Bucky Irving over 2 touchdowns at plus
There you go.
1,000. Those odds are much more juice to me. Looking at his game log, let's take a look at that. He has not had a 2 touchdown game yet. However, he was splitting that backfield with Rachaad White last season. This past game, 18 touches. Did not have the best game by any means, but that Falcons defense was hyper fixated on the run. This Texans defense is pretty good at stopping running backs, I believe. Now, they allowed a touchdown there to Kyron Williams last year, but they were solid, to say the least, against rushing touchdowns against running backs, 7th in the league. So, obviously, we're talking about long shot plays here. Just the value at 1,000 versus 2 touchdowns for Chubb at 800. I think that might be something worth looking into. Let's talk about this Chargers Raiders game very quickly before we
Well,
close
hold
this
up.
out.
Let me make my long shot real quick.
Oh,
My
you
long
want to make
shot
your
pick.
long shot? Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go,
Hey,
go, right.
question.
Be my game.
Agumbawale, he's a bigger back, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. He's a much bigger back.
I like him to get a touchdown tonight. I just got a feeling somebody weird's gonna score, and it's gonna be him.
Okay, Akumbawale. I like that. As a matter of fact, I think he just got replaced by Damian Pierce here in the lineup. I wonder what that's about. Let's go
If
take
so,
a look at.
then Damian Pierce, whichever one's the RB2 tonight. He was just there at plus 650.
Yeah, I saw.
Agumbawale.
Oh, here he is. Here he is. Plus 650.
There you
Anytime
go.
touchdown. So let's see
There's
here.
my
Yeah,
long shot.
FanDuel plus 650. Daria Kumbawale, anytime touchdown. You know what? I don't hate it with Nick Chubb being pretty old in terms of rush attempts and whatnot.
Don't
Can
want
he
to just
be a
send him into the grinder on the
yeah,
goal line.
can he be a guy that just continuously pounds it against the wall? Maybe, maybe not. This is obviously not something we're telling you to put, don't put the mortgage on this.
At the house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah? Okay. That's what I like to hear. So let's talk about Chargers Raiders. Long shot, anytime touchdowns. Let's see here. We got Herbert plus 550. Don't hate that with the amount of rushing attempts that he
I
got
love it.
last week. Yeah. Will Dissly at plus 600. Let's look at this Raiders defense last year. Let's see. Any good rushing touchdown statistics? They were pretty middle of the pack against quarterbacks, giving up rushing touchdowns, middle of the pack against running backs. Tight ends. Here we go. Tight ends last year gave up the 29th most touchdowns per game to tight ends. Will Dissly at plus 600, only getting around 17% of that target share, though, in the red zone. Maybe something to look at. Something else that's curious to me. We talked about this earlier about Ladd McConkey at plus 165. I just don't see the value in an anytime touchdown here, considering the fact that in 2024, he had the 3rd most target shares in the red zone. He's a slot guy. We're not, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily see slot guys get a ton of red zone targets. So I don't love this at 160. I'd like to go back. He was averaging a touchdown every other game. So, maybe this is something that you could consider looking into, but I'd like to see that number be pretty, pretty close to the Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston numbers at 220-ish, maybe. But I digress. Moving back to these long shot plays. You're a fan of Herbert anytime touchdown, 600?
I am a fan. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that. One thing I was looking at also, it's interesting. Tyler Conklin's line is less than Will Disley's.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a pretty good note. Let's take a look at their game logs from last week. Will Dissly, 1 target, 1 reception, 18 yards. Tyler Conklin last week, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 50 yards.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. And then looking at the red zone targets, neither of them targeted in the red zone. So I'm very interested, as a matter of fact. Let's look at some of the major sports books on this. FanDuel,
Wow.
480. And then what do we see here for Disley? 600. So, 120-point difference on that. I'm very interested in
Wow.
what the reasoning behind that
You
is.
know what? That's fishy. That's real fishy. That makes
Yeah.
me think Conklin is the bet. You don't see a line that wide without some type of explanation.
Yeah.
Maybe some insider info.
Let's look at some let's see. You know what? I kind of like that. I like that play. So we'll go with a more long shot play here with Tyler Conklin anytime touchdown, right? Are you a fan of that?
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, let's punch that. So, with that being said, Hunter, thank you so much for being here, and thanks to our audience for paying attention. Doink Sports is a wonderful tool to take a look at everything in terms of player props, anytime touchdowns, the over under, which we didn't even have the pleasure of getting to tonight. Team props, side. They have injury reports for every single professional football game. That's something of note. That's something that everybody should be paying attention to before you start to try to do these out. Another thing, you compare all of your lines per sports book, per line. I mean, this isn't just trying. So quickly, before we close this out, you can look at 13.5. You can track that using all of the different sports books that are offering that line at 13.5. But you can also see what other sports books are offering at 14.5, 19.5, and so on and so forth. So be sure to check that out, doinksports.com. You could view one of these games for free tonight. Use code PLIZONT, PLIZONT, for 25% off of any package using my code. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck to everybody out there, and we will see you next time.